When I was a young girl growing up in England, I should have got my glasses. During World War II, I could never have imagined that someday I would be in the same room as two American airmen who risked their lives to protect the British. I watched the flags pass by one day. It fluttered in the breeze. A young Marine saluted it, and then he stood at ease. I looked at him in uniform, so young, so tall, so proud. With hair cut square and eyes alert, he stood out in the crowd. How many pilot planes shot down? How many died at sea? How many foxholes were soldiers' graves? No, freedom is not free. I heard the sound of taps one night when everything was still. I listened to the bugler play and felt a sudden chill. I wondered just how many times that taps had meant amen, when a flag had covered a coffin of a brother or a friend. I thought of all the children, of the mothers, and the wives of fathers, sons and husbands with interrupted lives. I thought about the graveyard at the bottom of the sea, of unmarked graves in Arlington. No, freedom is not free. Thank you.
Okay, I'd rather not use the mic.
Okay.
Before I do anything, I want you to recognize my friend Richard Hamilton, who was also in the 8th Air Force, a radio operator, right?
Radio operator.
We rely on these guys completely to tell us where we were going and all of our instructions. He was shot down on number 12.
Number 9.
Number 9, worse yet, and spent all that time in a POW camp. And I think if I was in one of those camps, I would have cut my throat. It was that bad. He's quite a gentleman. Thank you, Richard. Okay.
Can you all hear him?
No.
Can you all hear me? You hear
I
me?
hear it, no.
You hear me?
They cannot
Okay.
hear you.
If you like,
They cannot hear you.
you not hear me?
They
Some
cannot.
cannot, some cannot. I can hold this for you if you want.
What do you think, I'm too weak to hold? I put together some photographs, if you'd like to see them. These are combat photographs. One is on the upper left side is the first airplane we flew in D-Day over the beaches. We lost 2 of those that were shot down that day. Now, you're going to remember, there were 10 men on every one. 10 men. 10 boys and men on every one of these. So when one went down, it was a loss of 10 usually. I mean, sometimes they bailed out or were successful. Most of the time, they were captured as POWs or killed by the civilians. So I just want to get past that point. And what I'm going to tell you today is a really drab story of an 18-year-old kid and what happened to him in 1942, 43, and 44, and 45. Okay? I graduated high school on June 23rd, 1942, my 18th birthday. I was gone the next day. I got into the Army introduction center, and they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to fly. And they laughed. They said, the minimum to fly is 2 years of college. How much you got? I said, I haven't gone to college at all. Well, forget it then. I said, can I take a test? Oh, come on, you're not going to pass that test. And he looked at me and said, you really want to die, don't you? I said, no, I just want to fly. So the next thing was to take this written exam. It was very, very difficult. I passed. I passed with a 2-year college course. I never had a minute of college. Passed the physical, no problem. We went from there down to Nashville, Tennessee. There was about 250 of us on a train, boxcars, and they sent us down to Nashville, Tennessee. The barracks that we were in were pretty cold. They had no heat. After I was down there, we started taking tests for aptitude, and what they were going to classify us as pilot, bombardier, or navigator. Okay, those 3 important positions on the airplane, and the radio operators too. And so everything was going on pretty good. I was passing all the tests. The next thing, I felt terrible. My buddy looked at me and says, you got the measles. I said, oh my God. Measles on my, you know. The next thing, my back started to kill me. I had spinal meningitis. There were 32 of us in this ward. 2 of us survived. 30 died. Okay? So I'm just telling you the kind of luck that I've had. All right? Went through all the tests and wound up in San Antonio, Texas, classified as a bombardier navigator. And I went through the bombardier navigator course, the very first one, very first group to be trained as both. I've got both wings, bombardier and navigator. Of course, when we got over to England, our General Jimmy Doolittle, I'm sure you all heard of Doolittle's raids, he was our commanding officer. And he said, I don't like the way you were trained as a navigator, so you're going to have to do it over again. So we did. We flew combat some days, and we flew training other days. I got a second navigator rating. So anyway, we were going along in real good shape, and I passed everything, and I got my commission. Listen to this. Got my commission when I was 19 and 4 months, and the average guy to get a commission was 24, 25. There's the ring to prove it. Okay? I wasn't even close to 20, and I was a commissioned officer, second lieutenant in the United States Army Air Corps. Okay? We then went to Salt Lake City, where they distributed us to different groups. And I was assigned to a new group getting together, the 493rd Bomb Group, flying B-24s. I hated that airplane. I hated that airplane, I'll tell you. Because I was crouched like this all the time to use the bomb sight. And we didn't have the Norden, we had the Sperry. And I didn't like it, it wasn't as accurate. But anyway, that was the airplane we were assigned to. Had a pilot, navigator, co-pilot, and myself, and the rest of the crew. The navigator lived in El Paso, where the group was stationed. And so he and I got to be pretty friendly, and pilot too. And he decided to get married before we went overseas. So he and the pilot said, let's go, we're going to go out. And I had a terrible cold. I said, I don't think I'll go. Co-pilot was sick too, okay? The co-pilot and myself, both sick. Navigator and pilot drove off, ran in front of a train, and got killed. I'm the senior officer now. I'm the longest in grade. The co-pilot hadn't been in the grade as long as me. So I got the crew together. I said, well, what do you guys want to do? And they said, well, we really like you, Jay. You've been pretty nice to us. Let's stay together. So I had to get a new pilot, and I had to get a new navigator. Pilot was the best buddy I ever had, Donald Hogan. He was from Salt Lake City, and he had been a mortuary. So we kid him constantly. But to give you an average, I was 19 years old, he was 27. And that was the age limit usually that guys were flying because of the background and knowledge that you actually had to have. So anyway, we had a new pilot, new co-pilot. Meanwhile, I'd gone in the commanding officer, Butch Helton. I said, Butch, sir, I'm assigned wrong. I'm a bombardier. I'm supposed to be in twin engines because there's no room in the nose for a navigator and a bombardier. So we want to cross-train. Got up from his desk and he walked over to me. And you know what he said? Tough shit. Oh, okay, so I got it all right. Thank you. So I had to swear a little bit, but it's part of the story. Anyway, he looked at my bombing record, and they actually scored you in bombardier school how many feet you missed from the target at 10,000 feet. And my record was somewhere around 27 feet, which was unbelievable. They didn't believe it. They said I was doing something nobody else knew how to do, because the average was about 100, and that was considered good from 10,000 feet with a northern bomb sight. Anyway, they put us all together. They sent us up to Salt Lake City, and we picked up another bunch of equipment, and then to Lincoln, Nebraska, where we picked up one of these brand new B-24 right out of the Ford factory. Ford was building them at that time. We flew this airplane overseas with no radio aids. How do you think we did it? Celestial. These planes, if you look at these planes, they all have a dome, so we could shoot the stars, shoot everything that way. We flew from Lincoln, Nebraska to Dalmaine, then into Labrador, Nova Scotia, and Iceland. And the day after we landed in Iceland, it started to snow. And it snowed, and it snowed, and it snowed, and it snowed. For 10 days, steady, it snowed. So they finally shoveled the airplanes out. Couldn't start the engines, it was too cold. So they put big tarps over the engines and built bonfires underneath them. Burned up 2 or 3 of them. but they were only brand new airplanes, you know. Well, we flew ours finally on the 11th day out, and we landed in Valley, Wales, because our bases weren't ready. You hadn't finished the tar strips. About a month later, oh, by the way, in Valley, Wales, there's only one entertainment. Every single night they have a boxing match. So everybody goes to watch the boxing match. It's one of those things you do. So we flew into a little town called Debbage, not too far from Ipswich. And that was our base for our combat operations. We flew a lot of practice missions around England, drop bombs in the North Sea and all that. And then this one night, the commanding officer said over the microphone, "Everyone stand down." Uh-oh. What does that mean? So they woke us up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had theaters like this where there was a big blackboard up front. The blackboard had a map of Europe on it, mostly Germany to Spain, okay, some parts of Africa. And you would know what your mission is when you see a red thread going from our base in England to someplace in Europe, all right? We knew where we were going right off. Well, we looked at this one, it's right across the channel. The invasion. Wow, we'd seen all these transports coming in, and these LCSs and different landing crafts. And so we knew that something was going to happen, but we all thought it would be in Denmark. Perfect way to go in, right? But heading right east, beautiful. No, the beaches, probably the worst place to go in, heavily fortified. We put up 28 planes that day. We lost 2. That's 20 guys dead the first day. Okay, and they all were killed, every one of them. Both planes blew up, direct flak hits, because we didn't see any fighters that day. We flew a second mission, we didn't get credit for it. The 8th Air Force wouldn't give you credit for a mission unless it was 5 hours and a minute. This was 4 hours and 59 minutes. We didn't get credit for that mission. But by then, we were having trouble because they were bombing on smoke screens, and the smoke screens were blowing back on American troops. I didn't drop my bombs that day. I didn't drop my bomb. I knew something was wrong. I could see the smoke screen was way off. So anyway, we flew another 11 missions in that airplane, and then one morning we're waking up and all the engines are running. Must be the Germans have come and stealing our airplanes. We didn't know what's going on. General Doolittle had decided, because we were in another division with B-17s, he wanted us to have B-17s. Okay, fine, dandy. Now this isn't like getting from a Ford to a Chevy, all right? This is a plane. The B-24 had the tricycle landing gear, so you flew this that way, okay? The B-17 was a trail dragger. Completely different airplane, right, Richard? And very much difference in flying information and knowledge about the airplane. They were quite different. So anyway, they put us in there. I was happy as anything. I had this great big glass greenhouse now in front of me, you know, and on long missions, if I knew there wasn't going to be any flak and fighters, I'd just fall asleep. Got lots of naps. Anyway, the Norden bomb site was in 2 pieces. The top piece, which was actually the site, was kept in a locked building. I would go there when we were going to do a mission and get it, and I'd have 2 MPs, military police, one on either side of me. I'd say, Richard, walking along, what's the password? They'd arrest you right away. And if you turned around and ran away, they'd shoot you. The bomb site was totally secret. Absolutely. Yeah. And more than one person got shot because they didn't even know, either they panicked or did something wrong, and the MPs decided they're not safe. So, until we got that thing in the airplane, it was guarded by 2 military police helping us get there. Sometimes in a Jeep, sometimes walking. It depends on what part of the airport our plane was stationed at that time. So anyway, one other thing you probably never realized, because you never knew, is the bombardier flew the airplane on the bomb run. Okay? We would reach a point called the initial point. And it was where the navigator was done. He turns the plane over to the bombardier. He's giving you heading, altitude, everything you need to put into this bomb site. It was pretty complicated. Pretty complicated. But if you put everything in that bomb site correctly, and the pilot kept his hands off, and he had to, basically, because we were hooked to the automatic pilot. And we flew the bomb, through the bomb site, we flew that airplane. All right? When you got to the target, the bomb site said, it's my turn, and they flipped the bomb out automatically. We could set the bombs to be salvoed, everything one load. We could walk them from any distance apart that we wanted, pretty near, a couple of 100 feet. If we wanted, there was something like a rail line. We'd walk them down if we could. we didn't bomb small targets like that very often. And I have, this is the list of my, right from the 8th Air Force, the day I finished my 35th mission, where I went, what I did, how long. Ironically, the last mission was the longest, 9 hours. The reason for that is because I broke a regulation. And I have to tell about it because, for one thing, I'm embarrassed, but it's off my record now. This was the worst heavily defended oil refinery the Germans had. Now, to get one of these stars, a battle star, we had to knock out, say, 8 oil refineries. That was a battle. That's what Doolittle considered a battle. We got 8 oil refineries, we got 8 truck factories, we got 7 Jeep factories, we got 7 Messerschmitt factories. When you knocked out all 7, you got a star. If they got one back in within 30 days, you don't get the star. Okay? So this was Schweinfurt. And if you look up Schweinfurt, we lost more airplanes in Schweinfurt than any other place, except maybe Berlin. I was headed in a certain direction. And as I watched this, I could see planes in front of me getting blown to pieces. The flak was so heavy. I turned 28 airplanes off that target and came through. I had to go way down, almost 100 miles, and then turn around and come back. Instead of going this way, I was going this way. And it was much, much better. When I got back, I got court-martialed. I wouldn't follow orders. And so they confined me to quarters for 30 days, and they fined me a month's pay. And then they wiped it off my record. Anyway, I was lucky it was the last mission. I didn't give a damn, tell you the truth. I knew I was going to be going home. And I didn't want to see 28 airplanes shot down. And it could have been pretty close to that. The way that flak was coming up, they were determined to keep that oil refinery running. There's no two ways about it. Worst loss we ever had was the first time we saw a German jet. And the Germans had jets, lots of them. And the only problem with their jet is the engine would burn up in about 5 or 6 flights. So they had to put a new engine in. But they had a jet. On this mission, now when we flew stacked. There would be 4 groups, 4 stacks of 12. So there's that many flying in a group, all right? And the first time their jet went through, they shot down 11 or 12. Now, that's 10 guys on every airplane, okay? And the worst part about it, we go back, we were really pretty lucky. We'd have to go back, pack up the other guys' stuff that got shot down, and send it back to their folks. Pictures, and I can imagine what happened with Richard's folks. Pictures of, you'd see pictures of a wife and a baby, and, sometimes I really felt terrible for the family. But anyway, that was one of our jobs that we were supposed to do. Other than that, I came back to the States. I was really lucky. Most guys came back on boats. I got a flight back. Landed in New York City on New Year's Eve, LaGuardia, and went home. Spent about a month home. Met the girl that I was going to marry. Talked her into it. And then went back into training. I trained the bombardiers that flew in the B-29s in Japan. They took me, and my commanding officer was wild when he found out with all the combat I'd had. So he brought me back. And he said, I'm going to do something for you. He said, you have an amazing record. You're a navigator, you're a bombardier, you're also what's called a radar operator, a G operator, pathfinder operator. He said, you got it all, but one. Guess what? Pilot. Pilot. He sent me through pilot school, and I got a picture to prove it. Yeah, sent me through pilot school. I'm going to tell you another story. We were fully trained with prop planes, but the Air Corps still had come out with the first jets. They were called the Lockheed P-80. We had 10 of them. I was assigned to plane number 4. And the night before, a bunch of us were sitting around in the officers' club having a drink or two. And this guy walks up to me. He's a major. By then I'm a first lieutenant. I got promoted to first lieutenant at 20 years old. And he looks at me and he said, "Lieutenant, you got number 4? I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's mine." He was a Marine pilot from the Pacific, and he shot down 28 Japs. He wanted that airplane to be faster than anything the Japanese could have, all right? So I said, "Oh, wait a minute." I said, "I need that plane to get my pilot wings. I'm just, I was half crocked anyway." So he takes the plane. He gets killed. The plane blows up. He saved my butt. But before that, the girl I wanted to marry called me up and said, "I'm not going to marry you. All these guys are getting killed. I don't want to be a widow at 21. She did marry me later on. Talked her into it. So anyway, basically, I went back. During Korea, I was over there for a while. And during Vietnam, I was over there for a while because I worked for a company called Republic Aviation, and I was responsible for the tool shop. I had 1,000 people working for me, and lots of times we would have to go out in the field. But I never got a discharge. All they gave me was a separation of service, saying, "Yeah, you're out for a while, but we could call you back anytime we want." So anyway, that's basically it. The Legion of Honor, which flabbergasted me, is for these first 16 missions. We drove the Germans right out of France, and that became the Battle of Normandy. And the rest of the missions were further deeper into Germany. And we made one mission we never got credit for, and I don't know why, but we made a mission where we flew from England to Russia. And that was another story I can't tell. That story is sort of too dirty, Gene, to tell. But anyway, and then we flew from there to Foggia, Italy. Both times we bombed. And it was called the shuttle mission. And they never gave us any credit for it. I think because actually it was under the auspices of another Air Force. We flew for them. So anyway, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. You have 2 pair of wings on. Are they different?
I don't know.
You have 2
Wait a minute, I'll get the,
pair of wings.
What'd she say?
He can't hear. He has 2 pair of wings.
2 pair of wings.
Oh, I see.
This is
Oh,
the
okay.
Bombardier. See the bomb?
Yeah, that's.
This is Navigator.
Right, okay, I've got that one.
You've got that one?
Yeah, from a
You got
boyfriend.
Bombardier wings?
From a boyfriend, yeah.
Okay.
He's got a story to
What
tell.
did you fly?
I didn't fly, my boyfriend did. B-24,
Really?
tail gunner. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, do you know
I've
what
got the
group you
wings,
flew
I'm gonna
with?
have to find them. Somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat.
I'll look for them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else question?
Are you ever going to write a book?
I'm working on it.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Tell them what you do now, Jay. You're still working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell them a little bit about that.
Well, one of the first things I did in Vermont was start a machine shop because I knew a machine shop worked. And then I went also called the Vermont Precision Products, which is still in existence today. I also went to work for Bryant Computer Products, and you can believe me or not, some people do. Another guy and I invented the disk memory. That little disk that's in your computer was invented right in Springfield, Vermont. I went to work up north.
Margaret's got a question.
Worked up north, and Vermont happened to I, and when I quit there, or I retired actually, they said, you want to go out and do some consulting. So I consulted for them across the United States, and then it just grew from there. I'm an environmental and safety consultant. Anything to do with EPA, anything to do with OSHA, anything to do with Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier, you name it. I can do the training and know the regulations.
We got another one over here.
Oh.
Oh, Margaret.
Jay, I was wondering how much time you spent in the British pubs.
And the what?
In the British
In the
pubs.
British pubs.
Quite a bit. That was second home. The banks were terrible, but the pubs were nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, coming.
Hi, Owen.
Hi. How many years in total were you in the military, from World War II to Vietnam?
Well, if you count the time that I was in reserves, that I wasn't actually on duty, it was about 15 years. Yeah,
15 years.
yeah, about 15 all total, yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Anyone else have a question?
Excuse me, while flying your missions, did your planes take any hits?
I gotta close, I don't hear well.
Okay. Did your planes
I have
take-
4,000 horsepower either side of my ears, you know. Lost a finger, you know,
I
shot
just-
here.
I just wondered, did your planes, when you were flying them, did they take any hits from the flak?
Oh, yeah, a whole lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We were lucky if we brought a plane back that hadn't been hit. I mean, almost every target, especially Germany, I mean, they were really well armed, and they had guns. We made, you know, I'll tell you a funny story. One night there's a knock. I have a little apartment. One night there's a knock on the door, and I go down there, open the door, and there's a nice lady standing there, and she said, "You killed my brother." I said, "What?" She said, "You were a flyer?" "Yeah, you killed my brother." I said, "What did he do? Where was he?" She said, he was a flak gunner in Holland. "Yeah, lady, we had one special mission where we wiped all the fire out in Holland. If your brother, he was conscripted. He was Dutch, and for the state, I'm sorry as anything, but that was our job. Those flak guns were shooting down plane after plane after plane. And we just had to do something about it. So the 8th Air Force sent every airplane that day to destroy the flak guns. They would put them on barges and move them in rivers. They had them up in Mobile. They'd be all over the place. And they were our worst, but by far, they were the worst enemy we had. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I know some of those memories aren't as pleasant as
Yeah.
you would like them to be. I mean, that's war.
Yeah.
We all know what war is. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Jay.
Well, you're quite welcome. Glad I could do it. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Great.
It's
Thank
been
you.
requested that Richard Hamilton say a few words, so I'm over here. I don't think he was expecting this. So I'm just going to ask him, and would you be willing to say a few words,
Oh,
Richard?
yeah.
Okay.
I heard a question about, am I in? Oh, here I am. About the flak, and when you can hear it clattering against your plane, and then you feel your plane went up because one was so close that it lifts the plane up. That's too close.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just always enjoy listening to Jay. He's a phenomenal guy, but as you stood up there, I thought, Hey, he's not an 18-year-old now. They just told us he's 92 and
93.
93.
and he needs a chair.
Yeah, I can.
I know.
Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Yeah, great. I was wounded by flak. I have a hole in my right hip where flak went off on the side of the airplane. And flak was like hand grenades. They were scored and they would blow all the pieces. It wasn't just a bomb or a shell. These things were meant to destroy. And a piece came through, it went through the airplane and stuck in my hip. And the only thing I knew was it was hot. It was really hot, and burned my suit. But when I was dressed in the first aid team, I turned the cross down. I didn't want it. My mother was very, very ill. She had cancer. And my father ever told me at the time, don't tell your mother what's going on. I know what's going on, but don't tell your mother. You shouldn't get it. You shouldn't get it. So anyway, I didn't. Janice can tell you that 70 years later, a guy got it for me. They found the damage records on that airplane that day, and it showed that the bombardier must have gotten hit. But anyway, so I have a Purple Heart, but I don't wear it. Anyways, one of those things. But the flak knocked down more airplanes than the fighters did. There's no two ways about that. And if you know, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, thank you again.
Jay, I'm just curious, what is the difference between the shrapnel and the flak?
The what?
Difference between the
Shrapnel
shrapnel and the flak.
Hmm?
What's the difference between the shrapnel and the flak?
Nothing. One and the same. The flak becomes shrapnel.
Yeah.
And it's pieces.
Yeah.
Maybe they're about not much bigger than a walnut sometimes. But boy, can it do damage.
I just want to mention that every morning after an air raid, the children, including myself, would go out
yeah.
to the streets to see who could collect the most
Yeah.
shrapnel. And I remember.
Oh, there'd be some big pieces, probably, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
right.
Thank you.
The thing that scared us the most in England was the German buzz bombs. And that was something that they had come up with, they had invented, that was amazing. It was a bomb with a jet engine on it. And they would put a timer on it. And it would come over and you'd hear it, brrr, and you'd want to keep hearing it. And if you didn't, it was coming down. They'd have a timer on the engine. I'm sure Richard ran into some of those. They were pretty terrible. We had 4 hit our base, and then they were on the way on runways, and not a big problem, but because of the concrete and all, the tar and all. But they did a lot of damage. And then they, of course, had the first rockets, and that was the scariest thing. The rocket would come up. We wouldn't know it, okay? There was no way for us to know in England what was going on. And you'd hear this monstrous explosion. And I was in London once when one came down there. And then you'd hear, whoo! The noise of the rocket came after the rocket because the rocket was faster than the speed of sound. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, there's a lot of crazy things I could talk about.
I bet you could keep us here all day and all night.
And a night too.
I could listen all day and all night. Any other questions, Karen?
So that was like a drone? The buzz bomb was like a drone?
Yeah, it was a bomb, and it had a jet engine on it. And they'd fire it, and they'd shoot it off these rams. And we actually did a bombing on one of them. It was just part-time, though. I mean, it wasn't a mission.
So it wasn't remote control?
Huh?
It was not remote control?
Oh, no, it just had a timer in it. And then you would time it to go off at a certain place, and when the engine quit, it would just die. That's it. You didn't. The only news you had was no more noise. You knew that thing was going to flop right in your lap.
Man, we're glad you're here today, Jay.
Yeah,
And
thank
all
you.
of the vets.
Yeah.
Boy, let's give a round of applause and
Oh, well.
thank them for
You know what they
all
say
their
about the
service. We don't
band?
know what they went through. Some of you here could also tell a good story too, I'm sure.
Who's that?
Well, some of the vets that are here. We have
Oh,
other
yeah,
vets here.
oh, yeah. Oh, that's it.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we have a fellow from, he said he
Yeah.
was in, is it Vietnam?
Oh, yeah, he was in Vietnam, yeah.
I was in
I
Korea.
talked to him,
Korea,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was in Korea and in Vietnam,
yeah.
not as
So,
a flyer.
okay. Well, I would like to invite you to have some coffee up there, tea,
Thank you.
cookies, and just
Thank
visit
you,
for a
Barbara.
while if you'd like. We have to continue our AARP meeting, unfortunately, but it's going to be short. Sylvia has a question.
I've always been interested in Dick Hamilton's talks, and I've missed every single one. But I have just a short memory of your time in the German concentration camp. I wondered how you were treated and whether you were starved out or maybe you escaped. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It does sound interesting.
About that escape, what would you do out in the German countryside, not knowing German and not having any way to defend ourselves? And so you wouldn't want to get out. We had better treatment, even though the prison camp was, it wasn't as bad as, hey, listen, I didn't grow up with the luxuries that we have today. We grew up in the kitchen was cold in the morning, someone had to get down there and put a fire in it, and all those things. Every day I realize what a luxurious life we're living in today, but people are accepting it and don't know the difference. And but anyway, I feel so fortunate to live this long and enjoy my days. And it's an unusual thing. Most everyone has too many aches and pains, and
Yeah, tell me about
I
it.
have a long list of things that are go with old age and number of days you've lived, but I make the best of them, and as Jay does too, and that's how we do it each day.
That's how you survive.
Hey. Thank you, Richard.